just didn't seem that any of those good times survived and that they were going to happen again.
I've been silent for too long, and now I can't stay quiet any longer. At 81 years old, I have to speak up for myself and for everyone. The truth about my marriage to John Phillips. The audience thought the mamas and the papas was just music, the dream of American youth in the 1960s. You thought we were the golden couple of the 60s?
If there's one thing I want you to do.
From the outside, maybe I looked like the luckiest woman in the world, a folk rock icon, hand in hand with a songwriting genius. But behind the timeless melodies of California Dreamin' was a marriage that felt like hell, a passionate love that turned into a prison, a man who was a genius but also obsessed with drugs, power, and control, and a woman, Michelle, who paid the price with her youth, her tears, and her very soul, trapped in a world of drugs, betrayal, and loss. And now, the truth that will leave audiences speechless. This love story was never a fairy tale. It was a battle, filled with tears, defiance, pain, and long nights of loneliness. 5 tragedies, 5 untold truths I will reveal to the world. The only question is, do you have the courage to listen until the very end?
I passed along the way.
I still remember that fateful day in 1962 like it was yesterday. I was just an 18-year-old girl, innocent and full of dreams, while John Phillips was already a 27-year-old man, experienced, magnetic, the leader of the folk group, the Journeymen. He was tall, with piercing eyes and a confident smile that seemed to shrink the whole room when he walked in. I didn't know if it was love at first sight or just the naivety of youth, but in that very moment I thought, this man is going to change my life. We met at a music party in California. John wasn't just charming. He made every girl believe she was the only one he saw in the crowd. I was no exception. He talked about music, about his dream of conquering the world with songs. And I, a young girl, believed I was chosen to join him on that journey. Soon after, John and I fell in love. That love came like a whirlwind. He wrote music, I sang. We shared every plan, every dream. To me, John was like a guiding god. I trusted him completely, believed he would be my rock, the one I could lean on for life. In 1963, I was just 19 when we got married. It was a simple wedding, but it was full of hope, at least from my side. And then the shared dream began to take shape. In 1965, when the mamas and the papas was born, it felt like the whole world opened up before us. California Dreamin' played everywhere. It became the anthem of a generation. I stood on stage, the lights shining bright, beside John and the others, and my heart was full of joy. I thought, this is everything. This is the love and career I've always dreamed of. But even in that seemingly perfect moment, small cracks had already begun to form. Cracks I was too young to notice. John controlled me in the smallest details, what I sang, what I wore, who I met. I thought it was just a husband's care, a band leader's responsibility. But slowly, that care turned into chains. The press called us the golden couple of American music. They saw the smiles, the spotlight, saw me holding John's hand on stage. They didn't see the long nights I sat alone, hearing the door close behind him as he worked and talked with others, while I was just the shadow behind it all. But let me be honest with you. In those early years, I still believed it was love. I still thought things would get better. I kept telling myself, he's a genius. He just needs time. And I will be the one who lifts him up. We had our daughter, China, in 1968. I held her in my arms, believing that motherhood and family would save this marriage. I believed John would become a good father, that we would raise our child together with love. But I was wrong, so wrong. The audience saw a perfect family. But the moment the stage lights dimmed, the hell began to show. The secrets, the betrayals, the addictions, they were all waiting ahead. And I, back then, had just stepped into the cage without even knowing it. I once thought my life was like a fairy tale. I, the young innocent girl, was brought onto the stage living under the bright lights, holding hands with a talented and powerful man. But just a few years after California Dreamin' echoed around the world, I began to understand. Every bright light casts a terrible shadow, and with John, that shadow never stayed quiet. In 1966 and 1967, when the mamas and the papas were at their peak, the press praised us as the band bringing the California dream to the world. But behind the scenes, the band had become a battlefield. John controlled everything: the lyrics, the melodies, the schedule, even our personal relationships. He wasn't just the musical leader. He wanted to be the ruler of my life. I was no longer Michelle Phillips. I was just the wife of John Phillips. The arguments started appearing. At first, they were about small things. He complained about the way I sang, said my voice was too soft, too weak compared to his vision. I tried. I practiced day and night. But no matter what I did, John dismissed it, as if I was just a decoration in the band and he was the only soul behind it. But it wasn't just about control. It was betrayal. John began having affairs, and he didn't hide them. In 1966, he fell into a relationship with Denny Doherty, a bandmate. But the cruel twist was, it wasn't me who suffered most. It was Cass Elliot, our close friend and fellow performer. These tangled affairs tore the band apart from the inside. I knew, but I stayed silent. Why? Because I thought I had to protect our perfect family image. To protect the spotlight, the whole world was watching. In 1967, as Woodstock approached, we should have been united, ready to face the stage before hundreds of thousands of fans. But instead, I watched my husband drown in drugs, LSD, marijuana, cocaine. John tried them all. I no longer saw a genius songwriter. I saw a lost man, empty eyes, a shattered soul. Some nights, I heard his wild laughter coming from the studio, mixed with the burnt smell of drugs. I held my daughter in my arms, trembling, asking myself, is this the life I chose? Then came 1968, and everything fell apart fast. I discovered John was having affairs with many women, not just strangers, but also people we knew in the music scene. Once I got an anonymous message that said, "Michelle, wake up. John isn't just cheating on you. He's destroying himself and the band." I read it over and over, but I couldn't believe it. Then, when I saw him step out of a hotel room with a young girl, I finally understood. The truth was crueler than any rumor. The press started to smell scandal. They photographed us, asked me again and again, "Michelle, are you still happy with John?" I smiled, gave a polite answer. "We're doing fine." But in my heart, I knew everything was broken. In 1969, as the band slowly dissolved, I was in a state of despair. John was no longer a husband, no longer a father. He was just a shadow haunted by power, drugs, and desire. I remember one night knocking on his door just to beg, "John, think of our daughter. We can't go on like this." But he only looked at me blankly. then turned away, as if I never existed. And so I, the girl who once believed in fairy tale love, became a witness to a marriage tragedy in the heart of Hollywood. A marriage that once seemed unbreakable turned into a nightmare. I was still young, but inside I had aged by decades. The audience saw the smiles, the dazzling magazine covers, but they didn't see the tears I swallowed in the dark. They didn't hear the soul-crushing fights, the slamming doors, the long nights when my daughter cried because her parents no longer held each other. I once thought nothing could be worse than John's secret betrayals. But I was wrong. What destroyed us wasn't just infidelity. It was drugs, the demon that seeped into every cell of our lives, turning love into hell, music into a weapon, and family into a battlefield. By 1969, when the mamas and the papas were nearly falling apart, John had sunk deeper into a world I could never understand. Cocaine, heroin, LSD, he tasted it all, as if daring life itself. I remember once walking into a studio in the Hollywood Hills. The yellow lights fell across his pale face. In front of him was a long table covered in white powder. He didn't hide. He wasn't ashamed. He looked at me with eyes half crazed, half challenging, and said, "This is the only way to keep the music alive." I trembled. I wanted to scream. What music? What family? But I stayed silent. I was too used to keeping my mouth shut, because any word out of place could turn into one of John's weapons of emotional violence. By then, his betrayals were no longer secret. He flaunted his affairs, even in front of friends. One time in 1970, we went to a party in Laurel Canyon. In a room full of artists and musicians, John wrapped his arm around the waist of a girl 10 years younger than me and introduced her. "This is my new inspiration." I stood there frozen, like stone. No one dared look at me because everyone knew I had become an outsider in my own life. Worse, John didn't just destroy himself. He dragged our family into the spiral. I remember clearly in 1971 when our little daughter came home from school. There was a strange packet in her bag. Panicked, I asked, "Who gave you this?" She looked at me confused and said, "One of Daddy's friends did." My heart stopped. How could a father be so careless that he let drug dealers circle around his own child? I began to break down. I didn't recognize myself anymore. The woman who once dreamed under the California sun had become just a shadow, living in fear and despair. Every night I heard John and his friends laughing, talking about new shipments, while I sat in our room holding my daughter, praying for a miracle. The press began to spread rumors. Rolling Stone wrote in 1971, "The mamas and the papas may never return, as John Phillips is burning himself out." But they didn't know there was a far worse story behind it. John wasn't just destroying music. He was destroying the hearts of those who loved him. One night in 1972, I found him in the living room with a strange woman. I couldn't take it anymore. I screamed, "John, do you even see me anymore?" He turned, his eyes empty, and smirked. "Michelle, you're just the past. I need new things to create." His words cut into me like a knife. I realized then that our love was dead, leaving only the dried-out corpse of a rotten marriage. The humiliation didn't stop. He began spreading lies about me in the industry, saying I cheated, saying I was no longer his muse. I became the scapegoat for his sins. Friends drifted away. Colleagues whispered. The press hunted me. I became the center of vicious rumors my own husband had planted. I lived in that nightmare until 1973. When I finally found the courage to file for divorce, John didn't cry or get angry. He only laughed coldly. "You'll never escape me. That curse haunted me for years. The audience saw me smile on stage, saw the glamorous magazine photos, but they never knew how I collapsed when I stepped into an empty bedroom. They never knew how many times I wanted to disappear, to let everything go. I stayed silent for many years. People thought I was the California angel, the pure voice of the mamas and the papas. They thought I was lucky to marry John Phillips, one of the most talented songwriters of our generation. But behind the magazine photos, behind the bright posters, there was a completely different Michelle. A Michelle who was tired, lonely, and slipping into a world of affairs, long nights of despair, and a marriage marked by violence I had never dared to speak of. By 1970, when songs like Monday, Monday, and California Dreamin' had already become classics, our marriage had rotted from the inside. I would sit in the studio at Laurel Canyon, watching John bend over his lines of white powder, his eyes distant and unfamiliar. I went home alone, feeling like I had become just another ornament in his life. I began looking for comfort elsewhere. At that time, Gene Clark, the lead singer of the Byrds, often came to our house. He brought a gentle smile, a warm, deep voice, everything John was not. We talked for hours about music, about the loneliness of those at the top of fame. I knew I was walking on dangerous ground, but I couldn't stop. Just once, I told myself. But the truth is, it was the first time in years I felt truly heard. Then there was Denny Doherty, my bandmate in the Mamas and the Papas. Between us, there was something both familiar and distant. Something that glimmered during the long, exhausting nights on tour. The press later called it the legendary affair, but to me it was only a storm of emotions. I am not proud, but I do not deny it. I was a young woman, abandoned in her own marriage, reaching for a hand to hold. John knew. Don't think he didn't. He heard the backstage whispers, saw the looks in the studio, and he became angry. There is one time, I have never told the press before, but I will now. In 1971, after a recording session that lasted past midnight, John came home high. He slammed the door, shouting, "You have humiliated me in front of the band. You're a traitor." I tried to explain, tried to stay calm, but everything exploded in seconds. He grabbed my arm so hard I thought it would break. I remember the sound of a glass lamp shattering as we hit the table. That night, for the first and only time, John became violent with me. I am not the only one who knows this. Mamma Mia, an Australian feminist magazine, later quoted me. There was one act of violence in the marriage, and I ended up in the hospital. Yes, I was in the hospital that night. A cut on my forehead, bruises on my body, and a heart shattered into 100 pieces. People saw me looking radiant on stage, but they didn't know that the night before I was lying in a hospital bed, pressing ice to my face, so the next morning I could appear in front of cameras as if nothing had happened. I learned to use lipstick to cover bruises. I learned to smile to hide wounds. John never apologized. He only muttered, "You made me do this." And I believed him. I believed because I was too exhausted to fight back. That was when I realized I had to escape or be crushed. My affairs were not revenge. They were a cry for help in desperation. But his violence was the end. I couldn't go back anymore. I began to think of divorce, but I knew John would never let me go easily. He controlled the finances. He controlled the public image. He even controlled the story of my life. Those years, I lived like a tightrope walker. On one side was the dead love. On the other was the music still screaming. On one side was the shame of my affairs. On the other was the pain of being abused. The audience might listen to Dream a Little Dream of Me and think it's a tender song, But for me, every time I sang it, it was like sending a secret message. Please save me from this dream. That was the moment everything broke apart. And what came next was my journey to escape. My journey to file for divorce. To fight for my freedom, my daughter, and my life. I remember the autumn of 1972 so clearly. The leaves in Laurel Canyon were changing color, the wind whispering through the winding roads, and inside me was a storm. I had lived for years in that pressure-filled house with John Phillips, a musical genius, but also a cruel husband. I could no longer endure the nights he disappeared into clouds of smoke and alcohol, nor could I keep hiding the wounds on my body and in my heart. And so, for the first time, I spoke out loud the thing I had known I had to do all along. I wanted a divorce. In January 1972, I officially filed at the Los Angeles courthouse. The news exploded like a bomb. The golden couple of rock breaks up. The headlines screamed. Paparazzi camped outside our house. Reporters shoved microphones into my face asking, "Is it true Michelle had an affair? Is it true John abused you?" I stayed silent. I knew any word I spoke could turn into a knife against me. John was different. He struck back immediately. In interviews, he smiled coldly. Michelle never understood me. She only wanted fame, only wanted to be chased by men. I am the one who built the mamas and the papas. Hearing those words made my heart bleed, because I had also lent my voice to the biggest hits. I had written, I had stood by him, I had held the group together when he lost control. But in his eyes, I was only a traitor.